All you have to do is make it in the United States. We don't need it from another country. As an example, Canada. If we make it in the United States, we don't need it to be made in Canada. We'll have the jobs. That's why Canada should be our 51st state.
U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to slap tariffs back on steel and aluminum. Remember, he did that back in 2018. This time around, though, it's 25% tariff on both steel and aluminum starting on March 12th. Now, before this latest escalation, Canada's premiers had already planned to be in D.C. this week. It was all part of a Team Canada approach to stop that other set of U.S. tariffs. Remember those? March 4th, Canada and Mexico could see 25% tariffs on almost everything we see and that we send to the United States. Energy, though, will see just a 10% tariff. Joining me now to talk about how Canada will respond is Federal Industry Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne. Minister, thanks for joining us. Welcome back to Power Play. So today we know that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Paris did have a conversation with Vice President J.D. Vance, specifically telling him that this would have a negative impact on jobs in Ohio, his home state. How did that conversation go?
Well, I don't have all the detail, but I would tell you the best words that I've heard in a long time is the CEO of Ford, which just said this is going to bring costs and chaos to the whole auto industry in North America. So I hope that these words are going to resonate because, like you said, when the Prime Minister and the Vice President were together, I was not present, obviously, but it's kind of the feeling you hear now from American CEOs. I've been consulting with a number of them. A lot of what happened yesterday came as news to them as well. You know, I was talking not only to Canadian CEOs, but Americans. We said, oh, we didn't see that coming. And now what we have been saying is that not only these tariffs are unjustified in the closest ally of the United States, but, you know, the message we were trying to send to Washington and across the United States is that the steel and aluminum that is bought in Canada is a critical component in key supply chain in the United States, in defense, in shipbuilding, in the aerospace, in the auto sector. And now what I'm pretty pleased about is now I hear more and more U.S. CEOs saying, hold on for a minute, these tariffs are going to hurt our competitiveness and they're going to affect our national security. And that is the message I hope that is going to resonate in Washington.
But do you think it will? And the reason I ask you this is because we've heard from a number of CEOs in different industries as well that have said, wait, we don't need tariffs. What we have right now in USMCA or USMA is good enough and it's working well. But Donald Trump continues on the path that he's on. So do you think that those messages are getting through to the Oval Office?
Well, I would say uncertainty now is starting to affect American businesses. And I think it's going to affect also the stock market, which I know is something that the president cares about. You know, when it's Canadians saying that to Americans, you could say, well, obviously we're making the case for Canada. But now what I hear, and last week I was in Washington, I felt that the tone is changing. Is now they're saying this all uncertainty and instability and unpredictability is really affecting our business. And like I said, for the CEO of Ford to come out openly, publicly and say, you know what, you're bringing chaos to our business. Right. You're adding cost to our business. You're making North America less competitive. And at the end of the day, American workers are going to pay the price for that, American consumers and American industry. So obviously it seems that now the message that we brought to Washington for months now is resonating more and more because when they see the tariff being applied, it has an immediate impact on supply chain. I always say the Americans don't buy from Canada because they want to be polite. They buy what they need from Canada. And these supply chain exists for a reason. They've been there for decades, and they make products in North America more competitive. So that's really what you're hearing now from a number of American CEOs.
But with great respect, Donald Trump has been asked about it in the past and the effect that it would have on the American economy. And he says there will be some short-term pain, essentially trying to tell all of those CEOs, look, the greater good here is that we're going to move production to the United States. And when he was asked yesterday about retaliation from other countries, he said, I don't mind, even believing that the tariffs will force companies to set up in the United States instead, moving from Canada. How concerned are you about that?
Well, one is the rhetoric. The other one is the reality. You know, you don't move a smelter like that to another jurisdiction. You cannot
Not
move the
overnight, but
production.
not
well,
not
you
overnight,
would
but
have to do that over probably a decade and with multi-billion-dollar of investment. But when
don't
you talk,
think that that's a real consideration?
I don't hear that from CEOs, honestly, because why would we move production? I mean, these supply chain and these investments, first you need the workers, you need the integrated supply chain, you need the energy. I was just with one CEO recently telling me, you know what, how many nuclear reactors they would need to even have the energy to power these new smelters that would be brought in the United States. You're talking about projects that would take over a decade at best to achieve. And what it would do, it would render North America less competitive, because there's a reason why they buy from Canada. We have been their biggest supplier of steel and aluminum for a long time. And therefore, now you hear more and more from U.S. CEOs that understand these integrated supply chain. Think about defense. This is not a small thing. You're affecting the supply chain of the defense industry in the United States at a time where we need to increase our industrial capacity in order to meet the challenge.
I don't disagree with what you're saying,
but military spending.
But he doesn't seem to care about that. Donald Trump doesn't seem to care about affecting the supply chains. He wants those supply chains not to be integrated with another country, but to be just at home in the United States, even if it seems, this is what our read of is him, is that it doesn't matter if it takes 10 years, that's what he wants.
Well, I can tell you, the impact on U.S. consumers, the impact on U.S. Workers, the impact on U.S. industry, I think is going to be loud and very loud as the days and the weeks and the months are coming, because they see no alternative to what exists today. Because when we have been saying, and you've heard that many times, you know, that you know, parts in an auto, in a vehicle would move like 6 to 7 times across the border, that the steel we make in Windsor is essential for the industry, that the aluminum we produce is essential for the aerospace industry. When you talk to folks who have to build these things, they really understand that bringing chaos, those are not my words. Imagine, this is the words of the CEO of Ford Motor Company, who said, the measures are bringing cost and chaos to the industry, and it's only going to benefit foreign workers and certainly other nations. So I think in these circumstances, I think that Americans talking to Americans and saying this is hurtful, as we have been saying for a long time, that these tariffs would be hurtful. And you cannot lump Canada with the rest of the world, because Canada is integrated in terms of supply chain with the Americans, and there's a good reason for that. That's how we can make the best vehicle in the world.
So tomorrow we know that Dominic LeBlanc, finance minister, is supposed to meet with Howard Lutnick in Washington, D.C., the nominee for Secretary of Commerce. What do you hope is the number one message that Mr. Lutnick gets from Mr. LeBlanc?
We want to bring back certainty. We need to bring back business confidence. We need to bring back consumer confidence. You know, we need to understand the rules of the game. You know, people, businesses, union leaders, Canadians. You know, we want to understand, okay, what are going to be the rules under which we can engage with our partner in the United States. And I think I would say over the last few weeks, we've seen that the rules of the game have changed. Now we need to understand, okay, under which rules do you want to play? Because when we know the rules, we know how to win. We know how to organize ourselves. And I think this has been a big wake-up call for Canada. People have never been talking more about a free trade agreement among all the provinces in Canada. A Canada First procurement policy, as I've said. Let's make sure that we favor our Canadian companies. Let's diversify our industry. I'm always reminded CDL, which was the industry minister in 1945, you know, reshaped the Canadian landscape in terms of industrial base, so we can diversify our economy, we can diversify our exports, because Canada is the only G7 country which has a free trade agreement, all the other G7 nations. But we can also diversify our imports. And I said that to our American friends. I said, by the way, we buy more from you, the Americans, than China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. We can also decide to diversify our imports if we need to go there.
But that doesn't seem to get through to him. And the reason I say to that is because he had said that he would give great consideration to a possible carve-out or not putting those types of tariffs on steel and aluminum from Australia, because he said that they have a trade deficit with the United States. The way he sees the numbers with us is that we have a trade surplus with him. So what do you do to get through to President Trump to make sure that Canada is exempt from this? Because we know the deadline is coming up in about a month here.
Well, I would say there's other reasons around Australia in my view, but we can get into that one day. I think it's related to defense. But I would say the best way to get the message through is to union leaders, to workers, to U.S. CEOs, to people like governors. I mean, remember, have you seen the governor of Kentucky's interview? I mean, you should watch that.
Yeah.
Governor of Kentucky said, hold on for a minute. That thing was a week ago. He said, farmers are calling me now. Distilleries are closing. Orders are being canceled. What's going on? He said,
but that hasn't changed what Trump is doing.
Well, no, but I think there's more and more voice. That I can say to you, Mike, from where we started to today, I see more and more voice. We said, I remember the governor said, I thought this was about Canada. Why are people in Kentucky now have to pay for policies in Washington? Why should the economy of Kentucky go into recession? We're hurting. So I think that the position we've been taking to stand firm, we've done that with provinces. You know, what we've done at the LCBO and across a number of stores have been seen. This was very visible. I was in Washington. People said, oh my God, what's going on? You guys are withdrawing American products. We said, not by choice, by necessity, because you're threatening us with tariffs. So I think what we need to do as Canadians is be united, speak with one voice, be firm. And I would say on the other end, let's be ambitious, let's be confident, and let's build you know, the Canada that we want to make sure that we are more resilient amongst ourselves. And I think if there was a time to do it, is now. And I think Canadians are ready for that.
We're running out of time, but one last question. We know what Canada said that we were going to do to respond to tariffs across the board, those across-the-board tariffs. What is our response specifically on these steel and aluminum tariffs? And when will Canadians know what it is and how we will meet that moment?
Well, first of all, our first mission is always to prevent these tariffs. We'll get a suspension. In this case, we'd get an exemption. So what we're doing now, we're consulting with our partners around the world. We're examining the fine prints because, as you know, the executive order has about 12 pages. So you need to understand all the impact upstream and downstream of the different industry, and making sure we send a very strong signal to Washington that we'll have a firm and strategic response to whatever tariff could be imposed on Canada.
Will it be dollar for dollar, steel and aluminum?
Listen, I hope we don't need to get there. I hope that we can achieve an outcome that would be a win-win. But one thing that they need to understand is that we will defend our workers in our industry. And they've seen that we've done that in 2018. So we have an historic of standing up for workers in our industry. They know that very well.
So it'll be similar to 2018?
Well, listen, we are ready to do whatever it takes to protect our industry.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Francois-Philippe Champagne, Canada's Industry Minister, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.